What's up, Wizards? It's Deb from The Place, and we are entering the back straight on these Edge of Eternities previews. I guess that's more of an ether drift analogy. We are re-entering our own atmosphere with these Edge of Eternities previews, baby. Today was the last day of content creator previews. It looks like we're still going to get that big, beautiful batch of commons tomorrow morning. As usual, I'll sift through those and bring you my 10 favorites, but it's all going to culminate in the big stream where I rate every single card in the set in a speed run. We'll see if we can break our time. Make sure you're there for that tomorrow, Friday night, on twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. But we got a lot of cards to look at today. Not a lot, just 10 to be exact so far today, but there are a few of these that look pretty hype, including one more rare and one more mythic at the very least from this set, both of which look cool in their own ways. So let's get to it. Alright, now since it's a preview day like any other, there's plenty of drafty stuff we have to get through before we get to the really juicy things, but at least the drafty stuff are, creatures that would be really good if they were printed in 1996, like Blade of the Swarm here. 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 3/1 insect assassin. When it enters, choose one. He either gets 2+1/+1 counters, or you put target exiled card with warp on the bottom of its owner's library, a 4 mana 5/3. I'm telling you. 1996, this would have been Jism Jin, like part 2, and we would have all been like, ooh, that's a good card, but nowadays, it's just kind of normal, you know what I mean? First card of the day with this one, but I guess in Limited, it could be somewhat viable because of the ability to take a card with Warp and just, tuck it. I don't think that that's so bad. I also really like the first line of the flavor text here. It's got 3 words in it that aren't really words. Just having read it makes you 6 times nerdier immediately. I like flavor text like that. Also, by the way, just last thing on this guy, I guess, cool name. Kind of weird that this hasn't been the name of a card yet. Blade of the Swarm. It just sounds like a magic card, right? But there's also Mechan Navigator over here. 2 mana, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 artifact robot pilot. And whenever it becomes tapped, you get to loot, draw a card, and then discard a card. So this flavor text also has a couple of words that aren't words. And if you read it, you'll be like, what? For a second. But in any case, this is a pretty normal guy. Just 2 mana, 2 power dude for limited. He's a 23rd card, a 16th creature, we sometimes say. And in this case, he's not the most embarrassing dude in the world. If you ever do get to attack with him, then suddenly he loots. And obviously in this set, he can station for you and loot, and that's pretty decent. Next in our check out these limited card series, there's the awesome looking Lash Whip Predator. Good job on the art here, Brian Valeza. 6 mana, sort of. 4 and 2 green for a 5/7 plant beast with reach, but it costs 2 less to cast if your opponents control 3 or more creatures. Look, I'm playing Commander. My opponents have 3 creatures. You just get a 4 mana 5/7 reach, and it's not really that good, so don't play it in Commander. But I guess in Limited, your opponents are probably going to have, right at an average of 3 creatures. A lot of the time, especially when it comes time to cast this. Even if it's turn 4, it's likely they'll have a few different creatures out. So I don't think it's going to be too hard to cast this for 4 mana and limited, at which point it's kind of a scourge, 7 toughness reach guy. No one's getting through that with flyers. So I actually kind of want to take a good look at this for the limited environment. I think it might be like a straight up impactful card there that people play a lot. But outside of that, even though you get yourself, again, a 4 mana 5/7 reach, can you imagine? It's 1995 and you whip this out. You're like, oh my God, it's the best creature in the game of Magic. You're like, yeah, I know. But nowadays, again, it's just kind of normal. But next, let's look at a cute little guy, a serious man, some would say. 3 mana, 2 and a blue for a 2/1 dog, and when it enters, look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put 1 into your hand, the other one goes into your yard. You can warp this in for the same cost, 2 and a blue for some reason. I don't know why it doesn't cost 1 and a blue to warp in. That would be fantastic. Especially if it only costs a single blue. That, come on, we'd be talking. But at 3 mana, the same. I guess at this point, the idea here is that you just get the ETB trigger twice, 2 turns in a row. I actually think in limited this could be kind of okay too. I don't love paying 3 mana for a 2/1, but it's actually a really, really good ETB trigger, whether you're warping it or playing it out of exile and getting the ability again. So for a total of 6 mana, I guess you get a body on a couple of turns that looks at 4 cards and gets you 2 of them. And I don't know, it could be a lot worse. That's all I'm saying. This is mostly a limited card, and it's pretty good there, but, you know, there was a time this would almost be playable in standard. It's kind of a mold driftery effect, and look at that, it puts a card in my yard. I want that, you know, so I don't hate this card. I think that the ETB trigger is pretty decent. I also like that it has a bunch of legs that you can't see until you really take a close look at the art. That was clever. Also, this thing that he's taken apart in the background, it looks really familiar to me, but I can't really put my finger on what it is. I think it might be like the thing from BioShock. What were they called? Big Sisters or something? Either way, Big Brothers? I can't remember now. They were called Big Brothers, but yeah, I think that's what it reminds me of, but it actually reminds me of like 6 different things. Either way, the dog is very cute. It's very cute. I imagine if you scratch its belly, it kicks like all of its legs at the same time, and that's probably adorable. But we'll move on to Giga Storm Titan. It looks so awesome too, doesn't it? 5 mana, 4 and a blue for a 4/4 elemental that costs 3 less to cast if you've cast another spell this turn. 2 mana, 4/4? Anybody else down for a 2 mana, 4/4? You know, like, I think I might be down for that. All you got to do is cast like Opt on turn 3. You get yourself a vanilla 4/4. But the problem is that like it's 2025. Soon to be 2026. It'll be here before you know it. We're more than halfway through this year. I have no idea how that happened, but here we are. Yeah, this is not good somehow. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that this is actually standard playable, which is a shame and kind of wild because it's a 2 mana 4/4 and it's super easy to make it a 2 mana 4/4. It can be a second creature of the turn. It can be, you know, again, you can opt or slide a hand into this. That's probably the easy way to do it, but there's like plenty of 1 mana spells you don't mind casting. I'm gonna Bolt Wave into this. I'm gonna Torch Tower into this, and suddenly taking a creature off your side of the board and getting a 4/4 pretty early in the game sounds okay, but it's just like, is it good enough in standard? Is it? I don't think so. I sadly don't think so. It's kind of nuts because I think that there was a point where like a year or two ago, 3 years ago, this would have been borderline, and 7 years ago it would have been outright playable, but I'm just not sure that we're there anymore. We just get to look at this awesome Brian Sola art. He did a good job. Okay, so now we're starting to get into some uncommons that I like a little bit more, and I don't have like jokes about. I probably still have jokes about some of these. Next is Faller's Faithful here. I like the alliteration. The attempt, it's very nice. 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 3/1 human wizard. When it enters, destroy up to 1 other target creature. Unconditionally. If that creature was not dealt damage this turn, its controller draws 2 cards. That's pretty awesome, man. I like it. This is kind of a take on the random limited black creature that you're sometimes supposed to play. That's like a body. And it usually kills a creature that's been dealt damage, or like a creature that's been dealt damage gets minus something, blah, blah, blah. We've seen plays on this sort of theme in black creatures meant for limited before, but I think that this might be like almost standard playable, you know? It's no Preacher of the Schism at 3 mana. You have to beat that card and a couple of other decent black 3-drops in order to really see play. You have to beat Unstoppable Slasher, but I think that this is really close, you know? This is one of the cheapest Necrotal effects that we've ever seen. Seriously, 3 mana is really, really cheap for a creature like this, and it's unconditional. Even Necrotal was like, well, we're really just casting terror, you know? It's like the cheapest Ravenous Chupacabra that we've seen. I guess unless you want to count like Shriekmaw, and you don't, because Shriekmaw doesn't put the body on the table if you only pay the 2 mana for it. Really giving Edit and Dev some work here, but I've kind of sped through the first few cards, so I feel like I can spend some time on Faller's Faithful and really talk about it for a second. I've always been a big fan of Chupacabras and Necrotals and creatures like that in black that are just bodies that take a body off the other side of the table. That's fair. That's good mid-range magic right there. That's a 2-for-1 in a way. Board presence is important in old school Magic. I'm not sure that it still is, but I'll still take a 3-drop that blows anything that you want to up, and sure, opponent draws 2 cards in that situation, but might be okay depending on what you're blowing up and the fact that you get a dude on the board in the first place too. So everything about this is cool, and I haven't even mentioned the fact you can blow up one of your own creatures. You know, if you go like Infestation Sage or Kitesail Freebooter or some other thing that gives you, you know, a benefit when it dies, and suddenly you play this on turn 3, you sack your Kitesail Freebooter, you draw 2 cards, you get a treasure token, you know, scry, like, all that's 6, and you still get a creature on the board too, so kind of don't hate it in those decks either, but I'm pretty sure you've got better 3-drops, and you you really don't play that many 3-drops in the first place. Like 4 Sephiroth, 4 another 3-drop maybe, and then you're done. You throw Delny in or something. But I don't play that many 3s in that deck to begin with. But in any case, I've talked too long about Father's Faithful. It's just a card that I really like because, again, it takes these themes that we've seen in black decks in Limited, in black cards in Limited, and kind of, you know, for once makes you think, like, is this standard playable? Again, I think it falls short, but it's unconditional removal on a body. Let's kind of go a little bit. We just don't see this effect super often for this cheap, so I like it. I also find the flavor text on this one very hopeful. I will take a hopeful flavor text. And you don't often see those on black cards. Just like, evil is evil is evil is delightful is like usually the black flavor text. But no, this time I get a really good one, so... Either way, let's move on to Melt Strider's Resolve, a single black mana for an aura that enchants a creature you control. The enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and cannot be blocked by more than one creature. Pretty crappy aura, right? But here's the deal. When the aura enters, the enchanted creature fights up to one target creature an opponent controls. Let's kind of go, man. You get an enchantment trigger, like an eerie trigger constellation, whatever. Your enchantress effects and stuff will pop off. And that's pretty good just for a single green mana, but you also get a removal spell. That could be very hype, actually. You know, like I could see some sort of green-white or green-X auras deck in Standard right now that uses not only this, but like Audacity in the 1-drop slot is like really cheap auras that proc stuff. Like, you know, the 3-mana blue guy that draws a card or whatever. You know, like Optimistic Scavenger is another good one in like green-white auras. You play all these cheap auras that are actually pretty good. And like, if you play this on turn 2 and they played a 1 or a 2 drop, depending on like if you're on the play or the draw, you play this on turn 2 on your Optimistic Scavenger. Scavenger can deal like, you know, 2-3 damage to something depending on what else you got in your hand. So I don't know, I really like this. Kind of a good bit. I'm not sure exactly how good that green white auras deck is, but you know, we got a couple of like cheap ward creatures. We got Audacity, we got Sheltered by Ghosts and stuff, so it might be worth giving a shot. Wouldn't be surprised to see it pop up. I don't love the name Melt Strider. Who came up with that? I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. Anyway, next is Cerebral Download. Cerebral Download, I think, might be our last uncommon of the day, if memory serves, but it may not. My memory, it never serves me. This is 5 mana, 4 and a blue for an instant. Surveil X, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and then draw 3 cards. So you're always drawing 3 cards for 5 mana at instant speed, which is not like, you know, an incredible deal. I'm not going to like write my mom about it. Like, hey, Ma, you heard about this? I'm not going to do that. But, you know, it's still not the worst rate I've ever heard of in the world. You know, a control deck could play this, especially a control deck that's got like, you know, 3 artifacts out. Even if you're just surveilling like 2, I think this is a really good card. You know, but obviously there's going to be boards where you're surveilling like 5, and then it just becomes incredible. Immediately, you know, like 2 of those cards you're going to keep, you know, draw the best 2 out of the top 5 plus an extra one. That's incredible. Again, depending on the situation, the card's always going to be a little expensive to just like snap off, but it's going to be well worth it when you do, and you're positioned nicely, and it plays well against like Get Lost and any other cards that might give you an artifact or whatever. There's a few cards in this set that might give you a lander token because your opponent played a card. I kind of like that. But either way, you know, it doesn't take too much planning to have like 3 artifacts on the table, and then bada bing. Step 1, get the artifacts. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, Cerebral Download. I actually think that despite like the really silly name on this one, some people might be into it, but I just think that I don't want to see the word download on a Magic card. But maybe that's just me. Either way, man, you look at the text box and the rate you're paying for it and the speed of the card, and like it all kind of adds up to, again, a pretty borderline standard playable card, depending on like what the piles look like. So again, I like this one too. Not all the uncommons look great today, but this one's close. Now, we do have a mythic creature to look at today, Tanuk Steadfast Second, 4 mana, 2 and 2 red for a 3/5 legendary Kavu pilot. Other creatures you control, they just have haste. Artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp, 2 and a red. Now we're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere in this little spaceship that you're obviously in, buddy. I like this a good bit. As a commander, mostly. I think that's where most of its potential lies. You're kind of stuck in mono red, but you got all the artifacts to choose from in the history of Magic and plenty of red creatures you want to give haste. Trust me. Like 7 mana, just... Whoo, what is the guy? They reprinted him in Foundation, something Maw. He comes into play or attacks and he deals a bunch of damage to a thing. That guy's really good. You want to warp him in and attack with him, Anything that has an enters and attacks trigger, really good with this guy, especially if it's more expensive. This guy gets really exciting. The more like 8 mana creatures you play in your deck, like he could be great with those. It's kind of like a sneak attack in your command zone in some ways. That's nasty, dude. Other creatures you control have haste is just a decent line of text in and of itself too, even if you're not warping stuff in. But obviously that line of text works with the warp line, where like you warp stuff in, it has haste, you just go crazy. Just really, really kind of neat guy. I was going to use the word interesting, but I don't even say he's interesting. He's going to be fun to brew around, but he's more just like kind of in the realm of the obvious than he is interesting. Like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? It's not like, ooh, head scratcher. How do we break this guy? I'm a blue player. It's not really like that. You just look at the card and you're like, oh yeah. You're fun. You're a fun Saturday night with my friends. And so I think that maybe this is going to be one of the cooler like commanders from the set, in a set where we actually refreshingly have seen some legendary creatures, but it's not like we see, every other card is a legendary creature. That's not happening. And we haven't I have gone 7 whole cards in different preview videos this season without saying commander, which is kind of amazing. I don't feel like I've said the commander word anywhere near as often as I usually do in a preview season, much less as much as I had to in Final Fantasy, right? So I don't know, man. It feels nice to actually get a decent commander and be able to talk about it. It's a good commander. He certainly is, man. I think that this is a really fun one. We'll see about Standard. I don't think so, all things considered. But he still is a pretty cool dude you can plan some mischief with. And I like that as a streamer. And final card of the day, at least barring any reloads. I'm going to re-roll Mythic Spoiler and MTG previews before we really get out of here today. But so far, this is the last card I've seen today, and it is good. This is Memorial Vault right here. 4 mana, 3 and a red for an artifact. Tap it, sack another artifact. Exile the top X cards of your library, X being 1 plus the sacrificed artifact's mana value. You may play those cards this turn. So there's a few artifacts that specifically want to go to the graveyard in Standard, and there's even a couple in this set specifically. We just saw few days ago that thing that makes munitions, and when you sacrifice the munitions they deal 2 damage to a target, or maybe it's just the opponent, but one way or the other, just that works really, really well with this card, doesn't it? This one's a little bit slow to start, but I can imagine that even if you're sacking random tokens, it basically says tap, draw a card till end of turn. You can play it until end of turn, and that's a pretty decent ability. Even in Standard, that could be a decent ability. Once you're sacking 2 and 3 drop artifacts, though, the thing gets really powerful. You're sacrificing a Maze Mind Tome or another 2-drop artifact, and you get to kind of draw 3 cards in a turn. And that's just sacrificing a 2-drop artifact. If I am really hard up and I sacrifice a 4-drop artifact and I rip the top 5 of my library, I'm going to find something playable in there, And I think that that's actually again, borderline or even definite Standard playable depending on the deck for sure, and the makeup of Standard. But this can draw a lot of cards, and cards that draw a lot of cards can be really good in Standard, just as good as they can be in Commander. But obviously I think this is more kind of styled for Commander. 4 mana is not anywhere near as big of a deal there, and you got a bunch more mana rocks and stuff in your decks by and large on average that you can sack to this. Even if you're not an Artifacts Matters deck, you can probably find rocks to sack to this. So I like that about it. But in a little bit more dedicated artifact deck, then you'll always have something to sack to this, and it's basically draw anywhere between 1 and 6 extra cards a turn, and I think you'll be into that in Commander, dude. Red needs more ways to get card advantage, especially in Commander. It needs ways to get the same kind of silly card advantage that blue and even green and white can get nowadays. Black, even, every single color can get. It's I'm going to just draw 7 cards this turn for whatever reason. I guess I I just can, so I'm going to do it. Red doesn't really have that ability so much as the other colors can. So, I'm glad to see it get cards like this, where even though it comes at a price, 4 mana and the artifact sacking every single turn, I still think you can do a lot with this and draw a ton of cards. And heck, even sacrificing an artifact might be an upside even in Commander. Well, there's plenty of ways to just get the artifacts back and play them again anyway. So, I don't know, man. I think this is a pretty special little red card here, even if it never does anything in Standard. I think this thing tears up Commander. It's not like Smothering Tithe or anything. It's nowhere. It's not even close to the same card as Smothering Tithe. I was just thinking like 4 mana things that give you value as the game goes on. And I think this is a pretty good one. But anyway, I have just done my re-rolls of all the spoiler sites, and I have rolled a natural boof. Was not a good roll. Must have been less than a 1 because just nothing new popped up today. So that means I will see you again tomorrow with that common dump we were talking about earlier. But for now, I'm just going to reiterate that this is a crazy Magic card, and I'll take no questions. I mean, let me know how you feel about it in the comments, obviously. Am I nuts to think this is good? Again, maybe not the best Standard card in the world, but I think this could be a new red staple in Commander. Let me know if I'm off the rails with stuff like that. But anyway, let's throw it back to Couch Dev to bring it home here. And so there you have it. This is probably the last time you'll see me on the couch for Ether Drip preview season. And don't worry, we've got top 10 sleepers, top 25 cards, and all that good stuff to do right here on the couch in a few days' time. But as far as the actual previews goes, there's really not too much left. We've seen just about all of this set besides a few commons and uncommons right now. So time to take stock. I've asked you already a couple of times this season, but how you feeling? And specifically now that we know what the set looks like, what cards are you looking to play? What decks do you want to build in Edge of Eternities Standard, especially with rotation happening? There's kind of a lot to go off of. Just let me know how you feel, and as you write your comment out, I guess that means that we have time for the couch card of the day. I'm not even looking at the box whatsoever. It could be literally anything. What is this card? Hopefully it's better than Vampire Zeal. That's what we pulled last time. It is a Ram Through. That's a little bit better. I think a lot of people have fond memories of Ram Through from not too far ago. This is just 2 mana, 1 and a green for an instant. A creature you control deals damage equal to its power to a creature you don't control. If the creature you control has trample, excess damage is dealt to the creature's controller instead. You remember this being like a pretty good little bite effect, instant speed, 2 mana bite with an upside if the guy has trample? That's pretty fine. I guess I'd have to give that like a 5, right at a close to if it's good green removal. You don't see good green removal all the time, do you? That's not a bad couch card of the day. Anyway, if you enjoyed this content, make sure that you like the video. That helps YouTube know that you liked it, and then maybe other people will like it too, and it puts them in their recommended feeds, and that really helps me out. You can also sub to the channel if you haven't done it quite yet. Again, lots of content coming up. It might be the end of preview season, but we still got to do the speed run, top 10 sleepers, top 25 cards, a bunch of other stuff, some rotation content. I got to talk to Power Dragon about some stuff, and then we got to do decks for the stinking set after rotation, and it's going to be a whole thing. So make sure you sub to the channel if you haven't clicked the button yet. Might as well do it if you haven't done it. You can also check out the Patreon. It's just $1 a month to help support the content around here. And in a couple of days' time, I'm going to have to start making decks and stuff. So if you want to support me doing that and make the deck techs as good as you possibly can, then just throw $1 in the pot every month. It really helps out a lot. But that's all I've got for this one. Just let me know how you feel about the set at large now that we know what most of it is down there in the comments. And that's Allski Kowalski. I'm Dev from the place. I'll catch you cats later. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.